In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Damascus is the most ancient inhabited city and the gateway to the world. Its geographical location and land made it a cradle of civilization. It is the capital repository of history and dispersal point of knowledge. Its people and those of other countries, religions and ideologies who lived within its borders set a good example of cooperation and peaceful coexistence for the rest of the world. Caravans went forth from it to spread righteousness, peace, justice, and to encourage civilization and the cultivation of reason. Islam entered and spread over Syria 14 centuries ago. Its universal message called, from its very beginning, for peaceful coexistence with the other, without discrimination or differentiation, aiming at uplifting the ethical, moral, and cultural values of man.
I see the Muslim-Christian coexistence and cooperation in the Middle East in many, many different ways, because I hear stories of ignorance and clashes, but I also hear very moving stories of how people get along and love each other.
In Syria, we Muslims and Christians live in unity and in brotherhood, and as history shows, have always defended one another in the face of difficulties.
Islam came to complete the divine messages that had come before it, calling for virtuous and good morals. We find a common message sent to all mankind in the Holy Quran. We have sent thee revelation, as we sent it to Noah and the messengers after him. We sent revelation to Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes, to Jesus, Job, Jonah, Aaron, and Solomon, and to David we gave the Psalms. Since the early years of Muhammad's prophethood, the early Muslims in Mecca, who were persecuted by their own tribe, were well received by the Christian Negus of Abyssinia, who Prophet Muhammad called a just king. The journey of Isra, the night journey to Jerusalem, where Jesus preached, is an example of interconnection between Islam and Christianity. Here we can refer to the prophecy of Saint Bahira, belonging to the Christian faith, about Muhammad's prophethood. After the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had built up the Islamic State, he started to receive delegations. A delegation of Najran priests was received and hosted for a month in his mosque, and they were allowed to worship according to their own Christian prayer rituals.
The Messenger Muhammad, peace be upon him, welcomed the Christians of Najran in his mosque, where they stayed for several days. And when the time came for their prayers, they prayed in a mosque of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Some of the companions tried to stop them from performing their prayers in the Prophet's mosque. However, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, forbade the companions from doing so, and he permitted the Christians to perform their prayers within the mosque. So we do not think there is such a great divide between us, such that even in our place of worship, we allow you to perform your prayers.
Islam's message had widely spread until it reached ancient Syria. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Muslim Khalifa, signed a pact with the clergymen in Jerusalem. It emphasized the freedom of belief that had enabled them to practice their rituals freely and to keep their churches.
There has been many experiences and many attempts of dialogue through many, many decades between Muslims and Christians.
Peaceful coexistence between Muslims, Christians, and Jews in Syria has lasted for hundreds of years in harmony and mutual cooperation. Nothing disturbed the calmness of their common living except the intolerance of the fanatic or the greed of an intruder. The Islamic scholars have been well known for their moderation and temperateness, which they have taken from the teachings of Islam. They have practiced it as a way of life, and Sheikh Ahmad Kftaro was one of such scholars. His Islamic movement was characterized by calling to Islam with kindness and wisdom, in keeping with the message in the Holy Quran. Invite all to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious. For your Lord knows best who have strayed from his path and who receive guidance. As a result, many of the youth started to gather in great numbers in the simple mosque to learn from his wisdom and knowledge. The young Sheikh could attract the attention of his listeners by his enlightened and progressive thinking. The Sheikh's call and movement gained momentum and spread to many other mosques. He was soon lecturing in the biggest mosques in Damascus. Since the middle of the 20th century, Sheikh Ahmad Kftaro had held a series of friendly meetings with clergymen from different sects in Syria, especially with the followers of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. He used to visit them in their churches and also received them graciously in his mosque and at his residence.
From meetings which took place over several years before his death, I discovered in this person the true human being, who is concerned about his responsibilities to all people in this community and to all humanity at large.
We had a very open discussion on all kinds of sensitive issues, like we had this afternoon on limits to freedom of expression, the role of religion in politics, and all that. And I remember that the discussion was very vivid, it was very lively, and it was a great experience.
To achieve his goal, Sheikh Ahmad Kftaro visited many countries all over the world. He wanted to spread a message of tolerant Islamic thinking by respecting fellow human beings and saving their lives and dignity through the rejection of fanaticism and violence.
Work that the Samata Sheikh has done during several decades now, I think it's very important, and it has been very much appreciated all over the world. And I think that his personal work has built very important bridges between religions. He has met the Pope, he has met all the important religious leaders, and I think he's very much appreciated among the leaders of other religions.
In November 1964, Sheikh Ahmad Kftaro was elected as the Grand Mufti and the President of Higher Council of Fatwa, which is considered the highest religious authority in Syria. It was indeed a mark of high respect that the Sheikh achieved amongst the people in general, and the scholars in particular. In the early 70s, the need for building a big Islamic institution as a center for objective dialogue between Muslims and non-Muslims became a necessity. Therefore, Sheikh Ahmad Kftaro initiated the establishment of the Abu Noor Islamic Foundation, which was finally completed in the year 2000, following 3 stages of development.
The establishment of this foundation as an organization of knowledge and education which adheres to this faith while sticking to its principles, yet open to the advances in modernity, and presenting knowledge and Islamic education at the highest standards with the aim of building the current society of humanity and offering degrees in higher education from bachelor's to master's, to have a broad spectrum of knowledge, to build a balanced Islamic character that knows the realities of the Islamic sciences as it knows the modern sciences. This shows how far ahead of his time the late Sheikh Kftaro was looking.
Thus, Sheikh Ahmad Kftaro succeeded in establishing one of the biggest non-governmental international religious foundations in the Islamic world, to prove that Islam endeavors to enforce mutual relationships between the various cultures on one hand, and between religion and secularism on the other.